So I forgot to do that. And we have the live transcript. Okay. So where were we? We were at the stage of we had created station.info for our sites. We had created the APR file for our sites. And now we want to bring that information together with the sites around our network before we start running SHGamut. And this is where we can go back to our example here. Oops. Okay, so we've got a sites.defaults file. And next we're going to use this script again to combine the reference station info file with our station info file. So let's look at the help page again. We have a reference file, which is the main file that we distribute in ggtables that contains everything that we know about, and it should contain the information for those sites around my network that I added to sites.defaults. We're going to get the information for those sites by using the -L SD option, and that way we take the sites with the FTP RNX token in sites.defaults and we read those out from the main file. And then we're going to merge my station info file with the main one. So we're doing two things here. First, we are going to pull out only the IGS sites that I want to use. And the second thing we're going to do is we're going to merge that subset of the main file with my file so that we only have the sites that I'm going to process. So let's see, I don't think I can do this all in one go. I think it has to be two separate commands, but let's try. Okay, so my reference is the main ggtables. I'm going to pull out the sites that I listed in sites.defaults. I'm going to merge with my sites in this file, and I'm going to output a file called new. Let's see if that works. This could take a minute or so because the main station.info file is very, very large. So it needs to read everything. We're doing that. Okay. We can also edit the process.defaults file to add my APR file as the default APR file. So this will be merged automatically with everything else. So I've edited, or I've made two files and I've edited one file. I made this file. I made this file. And I edited this file for the sites surrounding my network that I want to process with. And I also just edited this file as well to include the APR file that I created. All right, so we're still going with that.
Hey, Mike, while we're waiting, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I was trying out all the different ways to make the compiled station info, and I was using the files tag to read it directly out of the Rhinex header, and I kept getting errors that said it couldn't read the Rhinex files. And I thought it could be that I had like the Rhinex 3 versus 2, but creating the APR from the Rhinex was no problem. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts there.
I think I would need to see the error.
Okay.
It might be that the information in the Rhinex header is not conventional. Again, as I warned this morning, Gamut really does expect things to be in the IGS convention. If it's not, it's anyone's guess what the antenna and receiver information actually is. So if your Rhinex header is not in the IGS conventions, if it's some arbitrary informal convention, there's not much that Gamut can do about that, because it doesn't know your scheme. It only knows the IGS conventional scheme.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure. I would have to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can look at that later.
Yeah, if you can share your screen, we can do that. This shouldn't be too much longer. We're nearly at the processing stage. All right, so let's see what happened with my new thing. So I have COSO, P188, P195. You probably remember some of these sites. And yeah, there we go. There's my sites included as well. So you can see what's happened here is we have taken only the sites that I want to process out of the main station info file and put them into a new one. And we've added my sites from the station info file.tg to the same file. So we've merged them together where we only need the sites that we're actually going to process. So that seems good. So I'm just going to rename that to regular station.info, because that's the file name that Gamut expects. All right. That's it, pretty much. So now we are ready to run shgamut. We've generated a merged station.info file. We have our APR file defined, and now we are ready to run shgamut. So what options do I need? I'm processing day 1 of 2022. I'm just doing normal GPS, so I don't need to specify a different type of GNSS. I'm just going to process L2, that's fine. I need to give it the experiment name. Do you remember what the experiment name was and where I wrote it? Does anyone remember?
I think in the defaults, when you specify the stations near your local network, TCG, something like that. Yeah.
Yep, that's the one. Yep, TGCG. Very good. Yep. So we can add that. And let's see, what else do we have here? The orbit will automatically be the IGS final orbit. So we can be explicit by adding that command, or we can just let it do the default. I'm just going to leave it as the default. That's fine. And yeah, everything else is mostly unnecessary at this point. So we'll just run with that. And I am going to pipe the output to a log file, and we'll see what's happening. Okay, so the first thing that's happening is it's downloading the orbits, and then it is the precise orbits, and then it is fitting the orbits to generate a G file. The G file is the orbital initial conditions. Now it is trying to download the Rhinex files that I asked it to download from the sites surrounding my network. So these are the public sites from UNAVCO and from CDDIS, which are the IGS sites. So it will try CDDIS, SOPAC, and UNAVCO data archives. By default, you can change those in process.defaults. But we'll just wait for that to finish. It shouldn't take very long. Okay, good. Just downloading. Okay, great. So we've downloaded all of our Rhinex files that we wanted to include with my 3 sites. Remember, my 3 sites already had the Rhinex observation files in the Rhinex directory. So we don't need to download anything that is in the Rhinex directory will be processed. Okay, so now we have, what's it doing here? It's updating the L file for, okay, so site P188 did not have a priori coordinates in the standard IGB 14_comp.apr file. So what it's doing now is it's trying to update the coordinates for sites that are missing. Okay, it's finished that. Now we move on to converting the Rhinex files to an internal gamut format for the phase and pseudo-range observations that's called the X file. So that's what makeX is. And then once all of those X files are made, we move on to the actual processing. Okay, and looks like something went wrong there. So, okay, good. Right, so you see here, we have this fatal message that says geodetic height unreasonable, check P and L files. What this means is that the coordinates are probably really, really bad. Maybe they are zeros, or maybe they are, 1,000 kilometers below the level of the Earth. So this is the point where this proves a point very nicely that in the lecture yesterday, we talked about how important it is to check your station info file and your .apr file to make sure that all of your sites are in there. This is an example of the kind of error message that you might get when you ask Gamut to do too much and it can't quite get the information it needs automatically. So there are a few sites there where we had, so here are some sites that had a .apr file generated because they did not have a coordinate in the merged file. We can look at that. The file is this one here. Okay, and you can see that it doesn't have any P188s. So we need to get that information from somewhere else. Let's see, P188, where was it? Here. Okay. Right, so we have 5 sites to get, P188. We have another file called all PBO IGS14.apr. This file contains all of the NOTA sites, all of the UNAVCO site coordinates. So we can actually go there and look for these sites. Yeah, there you go. There's P188. So we can add that to my file. We just add that in there. P195, P203 was also missing, and P204. All right, so now you see P188, P195, P203, P204. Okay, so we should now have coordinates for the sites that were missing. Even though they were UNAVCO sites, they weren't actually in the main GG IGB 14 file. They weren't in there. Okay, so let's try again. We'll remove the day directory and the log file because we want to start fresh. And I'll just run the same sh-gamut command. Let's see what happens this time. So again, it's integrating that orbit. It shouldn't need to download any more files this time because it's got everything that it needs. So it will try, but it doesn't need anything. So it skips through a lot quicker.
That's a nice trick because it takes a lot from here, from Santo Domingo. It takes a lot of time to download. No? My connection speed, no, but really that's important to know.
Yeah. Yeah, you only have to download files once.
Yeah, well, thank you for the trick. It's important.
Okay. Yeah, so don't worry about all of these numbers that are flashing up on the screen here. I'm actually using a version of the code that I've been doing some development work with, and this is just some debug information. I should switch the version I'm using so that all of that junk doesn't appear on screen. But you can see that it's running through the program model here. So this is creating the theoretical partial derivatives of how the data changes with respect to the parameters that we want to estimate. Now autoclean is running, so this is cleaning the data, and now solve is running, or it was back there. You will have briefly seen solve then takes the clean data and the partial derivative matrix and solves for adjustments to the parameters like geodetic position and whatever else you decided to estimate, tropospheric delay, for example. And then it does a second iteration. And that's it. I mean, this is really all that sh-gamut is. Everything else is being done for you now. So we have about 15 minutes left. So while that's running, let me turn this back to you and ask, can you follow that? Can you do what I just did for your own data, for your own project? And it really doesn't matter what data you choose. I had 3 sites from the geysers in Northern California. You could just go to the igs.org/network webpage and you could just choose some sites. It doesn't really matter, but could you go through this process now of setting up your station.info, setting up your APR file and running sh-gamut? What do we think?
Well, I will do it tonight, and I will try to do it. I tested yesterday with some sites that were that are stored in the IGS and archive now, and it worked really fine. No? But the big challenge now is to try to merge some of my observations with new sites from the IGS or UNESCO archive. And then I have a question for you, Mike. Um, how many is not important? I think that the amount is not important at all, no? But how many IGS site, for example, if I want to make some analysis for example, 4 sites in Santo Domingo city is really a small city compared to other ones, no? But well, in the area where I am working is maybe 20 kilometers wide, no? How many sites in the IGS or UNESCO archive should I look for?
Yeah, I will just start a new share here. I'll go back to the example 4 slides here. And as we look at our region of interest, presentation mode, is that, oh, I lost my screen. I've lost my share there now, haven't I? Okay. Sorry, it lost the share when I expanded my screen, so that's okay. We'll just do this. So I went to UNAVCO. I noted about, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the local vicinity. Maybe you have more, maybe you have less, but we're talking about the really, really close sites within 10 or 20 kilometers here. We note 8. Then we look a little bit further outside that area for some IGS sites. And these could be just, 5 or 6 that are within the 100 kilometers. And then we expand the radius even further and look for some IGS sites that are going to help define more of a continental scale reference frame. And this might go out to 1,000 kilometers or more. And in each case, I've added about, here we go. You can see here, there's the local sites. Then there's the regional sites. And then there's the IGS sites that cover a larger area. So I would be looking to include about at least 10 or 12, and maybe even, like here, 15 or 20 additional sites, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good starting point for me. Okay, that will be. I will try to do that because I have 4 stations in Santo Domingo, a base station too that I maintained from last year. I will keep that information too. That's a continuous record of daily information. But the sites that I occupy them for 4 hours or 6. And then there are 4 sites of them I have.
Okay. Yeah, I would just start with trying one day. And if you
only
can
one
do
day.
If you can do one day, you can do them all.
Okay, first beginning with one day, but I only will have the gamut processing, no, for that, no, because with one day I won't have a time series.
Sure. Yeah. If you can do more than one day, that would be great. But if you still want to make sure that the setup is complete and everything, you could just try one day, and then we can help a little bit more tomorrow. But if you feel confident, if you feel comfortable to generate these files for all of your sites for every measurement, then yeah, you could try, you know, all of the sites, all of the days overnight. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, Mike, excuse me. All the coordinates that we put in the APR file are in the IGB 14, no, realization, no?
They should be in approximately the ITRF. For gamut, it doesn't really matter if they are a little bit off, because gamut will adjust that. And the difference between ITRF 2008 and ITRF 2005 and ITRF 2014, the differences between those realizations are smaller than the accuracy that gamut needs. So it probably doesn't make a difference for the gamut stage. It will be important in the globe K stage, but we'll come on to that later once we have a little bit of gamut processing done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And I have a question. For instance, when I start with the year 2006, and according to advice, we start with the first day, and if everything is okay, we go for the other days. And for the IGS station, and also, for instance, if I can find any station in UNAFCO near my local region, when I use FTP RNX, it automatically knows what day of year and what year it should go and download the RNX data, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And when it's okay, I have to run sh_gamut for each day of year, right? I mean that I have to do it daily. When it's done, I should go to the next day.
No, you can, there are several date options for gamut. So let me share my screen again here. Okay. So you can see at the top here, we have 3 different ways to specify the date. You can use the -D option with the year and the days you want to process. So that could be -D 2022, 1, 2, 3, 7, 10, you know, just the individual days. Or you can do a span of days with the -S option. So let's say you want to process the whole year. You could say -S 2022, 1, 365. And then it will process each day from day number 1 to day 365 for 2022. It will do it sequentially. You know, this is where cluster computing comes in handy, or if you have many CPUs on your computer, you can actually do parallel runs of sh_gamut, which can then process, you know, 2 days at the same time. But, you know, again, I want to keep this simple because I know that there are people here who want simple answers to getting going with this software. So
of course,
I'm not going to talk too much about simultaneous processing and cluster processing and things, but that can speed things up if you have a lot of days to process. Yeah.
Right. And for the GNSS option, for making it simple, you just use -G, right?
The default is to process GPS only, which is equivalent to -GNSS-G. That's the default. You don't have to specify this GNSS option if you're only processing GNSS data.
But for instance, if I want to process GPS, GLONASS, and Galileo, if I just set GNSS, it automatically run all of the data, or I have to put it in separate directories?
Right, you have to put them in separate directories. If you specify the -GNSS option, let's say you want to process Galileo data, you would say -GNSS E, and then it will create a 001E directory with the Galileo processing in it. This is part of the test install. So if you've been through the test install, you will have seen this. as an example. It's
For the test install, I just run, that and test underline install to automatically create all of them. But because before I worked with GNS, PPPAR, and I just need to review some of the things that we have to do with processing. And so for GNSS, we don't need to create the directories. It automatically, when we specify G or R, it automatically created those directories, right? So there's nothing to do for us.
If you provide the -GNSS option,
yeah,
then the directory will have the GNSS code appended to it. So you'll have 001G or 001R or 001E, depending on what option you gave. You can override that with this option, the -net-ext option. If you want to have an extension on the day number, then you can add this option as well.
Okay, yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can see in the brackets there, it says default if -GNSS not in the command line is none, otherwise use the GNSS code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay, we have a hand up. Joshua, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I'm quite to the point yet where I'd be able to go and do this all on my lonesome just yet. If I had access to the video to kind of go back to for reference and just kind of look at some of the details that we went over in that video, in those videos, I'm pretty confident that I could do that, but I'm not sure I'm to that point yet where I'm able to get the APR file set up and then modifying the site's default file and just the general pre-processing, I guess, routine.
Okay. So what stage are you at right now? Yesterday we started building that station.info file manually, right, for at least one of your 6 sites, I think you have.
Yes.
Do you think you'd be able to add lines in the same way for the other 5 sites, for example?
Yeah, I finished modifying my station.info file. I went through and I got the heights from the Rhinex headers, the firmware updates of each receivers. And it was all, for me, it was more of a matter of kind of cutting and pasting because all of my sites are basically identical. I mean, barring maybe some slight antenna heights. So that part I did not have a challenge with, and I was able to take care of that. It was more so just kind of getting the APR files finalized and just a few of those other things, like getting the broadcast files as well.
Okay, well,
so
you can always skip over that as well. You could just copy and paste those Rhinex header coordinates into an APR file as well. You don't have to go through everything that I did. I recommend that you do, but and remember, a lot of this stuff is actually, I know that it's easier to see it from the video, but a lot of this stuff is actually already written down in example 1 and example 4 from the beginner's course. So if you wanted to go through the APR file, I think that is, let me share my screen again here. Whoops. If we go back to example 1 and see the README, for the APR file stuff, basically what you would be doing is you would be doing this step 4 here. So you can download a nearby IGS file. That's this shget Rhinex. You download a navigation file. and then you run shrx2apr, and that would be enough for your APR file.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will take a look at that and I'll play around with it.
But otherwise, I know you're making progress here, because getting that station.info file written at the very least is good progress. So that sounds great. Setting up the rest of the files is, sometimes we can cheat a little bit, or we can at least try and cheat, which is what I did last time. But unfortunately, that came up with that fatal error where the APR coordinates weren't quite right. But we can at least try and skip ahead. But if you can do this, that would be, great. Or all you're doing is downloading a site, downloading a navigation file, and running the data with a quick solution.
Okay.
To the top of the hour here, so I'm going to just move on to, I think Nate there has his hand up as well, and then we'll probably close down this session for the day.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Cool.
Nate, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, and thanks for doing this, Mike. It's really helpful. I have a question about the way Gamut will go about processing campaign data. So if in your Rhinex directory, you have data from like a whole range of days where the campaign was run. And when you run your sh-gamut command, can you just put the range of those days, and it'll just ignore the stations that don't have data for that day, or would that kind of like break the run?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happens. Is I can show you quickly the log from the run that I just did, and you'll actually see what happens here. So we go through and we download all of our data, and then you see here there's this block that says linking Rhinex files from the Rhinex directory with this program called sh-link Rhinex. So sh-gamut is sort of doing all sorts of, it's running all kinds of programs for you, which you can run individually, but we usually don't. So in this case, it's running a program called sh-link Rhinex for the particular day that I'm processing. So it checks the start date and the end date of all of the Rhinex files in the Rhinex directory. And when it finds one that has data for the current day that you are processing, it links it to the day directory. And after that, it will work on those files. So it finds the files that it needs that coincide with the date that you are processing. And it ignores everything else until you move on to the day that those other files are relevant for.
Cool. Yeah, that's really great for choppy data sets. And I was wondering if I could just share my screen and show you that error I was getting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you should be able to go ahead.
Let me try again. There's our Slack. All right, can you see my Linux box here?
Yep, we can see a station.info.nm. Okay.
So this is basically where I was getting my error. So basically I was just trying to write this Rhinex, the information from the Rhinex file into the station info file that I've already created. So I did a couple manual lines, and then I'll run through and I'll get this kind of random error. That says it.
So I assume you don't have a reference station.info file in that current directory. The first thing it needs to do is it needs to work on a file that already exists.
So I'm just in the wrong directory then.
Yeah, it looks like you're doing it in the Rhinex directory. You can just add a -ref option to that. And then just say, hey, Tom.
Bye-bye.
And just do the ~gg tables /station.info. That's the main distributed version. So if you do that, it will use that as the reference station.info. But just be warned that if you do that, you will end up with a very, 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 very large file with your Rhinex file in there.
Okay, so you need that reference station as well. And that's what you're doing earlier about, I wrote all that down about extracting the actual stations you want first.
Yeah, so very often what I will actually do here, you could probably cancel that and we'll do something else. Yeah, what I often do if I'm building my station.info file is I will create an empty version first. So if you take the first line of, if you open up the ~gg tables station.info file, just do a more or a less. Yeah, and just copy that line that begins with *site.
Yeah, this is why, because I had this set up and it wouldn't copy into it.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what then. Is there any the station.info file that you're writing to? Does that contain anything right now?
It does. It does now because I put extra stuff in it. But for it's the same message when I was trying to add it without these stations in there.
Yeah. So let me see the output station.info file that you've been writing. Yeah, that one, I guess. Okay, great. So there's some stuff in there already. So what I would do is I would use the -ref option with that file. And so you'll take that file, you'll add to it, and then you rewrite it.
Okay. So I think I was confused a bit about the what the write function was. So I thought that would write automatically to the file I put where, which was this file, but you need to add this as the reference file, and then they'll write it to like station.info.nm.new. Is that correct?
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. You have to be a little careful that you don't end up overwriting entries that you already have in there. So it's a little, but what site are you trying to add right now? Is it NMGR?
So yeah, everything's added. I added everything manually so I could move on. And I was just thinking for when I have like a lot of GPS stations, it might be useful to start with the Rhinex file and then like go QC it rather than do everything from the get-go.
Okay, it's just the reference station.info file that was missing from your command, basically, was the problem. It needs something to read first so that it understands what template to use. And if you don't have a station.info file in the current directory where you write the command, then it doesn't have a template to use. So you have to give an explicit -ref option to show it where the template is.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for your help, Mike.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, we have reached the end of the day. That was a pretty quick last session there. Hopefully people are following this. It's good that there's this interaction. It's good that people are asking questions. It's good that people are making progress with building their own files. There's nothing quite like just trying and practicing and experimenting, I think. And we are here to help. We are here to guide you through that. So I highly encourage all of you tomorrow, or at least by the end of tomorrow, to have built something, an experiment of your own, so that you can start, coming up against some of these questions, and we can then help you. If you get to the end of tomorrow and you still don't have a project to work on, then we need to discuss a project, a set of data for you to work on. So please think about it overnight. If you need some help setting up a project, please let me know tomorrow morning, because if you're going to get anything out of this course by the end of the week, I highly recommend that you start trying your own experiment. Okay, I will see you all tomorrow morning. We will begin again at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. That is 1300 UTC.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
Thank
All right.
you. See you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.